Welcome back. Moving on to the other big story of the day. A fire mishap that claimed the life of a security guard who was working at this high-rise in Mumbai's Parel area. This security guard who actually went there to save lives and ended up losing his own. A fire broke out at one of these societies in the lower Parel area of Mumbai earlier in the afternoon. And since it was at a higher floor, it took time to put out the fire, and the people who were inside that apartment, working in that apartment, some renovation work that was going on, were trapped. But the man that you see on your screen right now, 30-year-old Arun Tiwari, he worked as a security guard. He rushed up to help the people who were stuck on the floor. He helped them escape. The minute he found out about the fire, ran to the 19th floor to help the people who were trapped in this flat. Unfortunately, he himself got stuck in that fire. And with no way out, the interiors of the building, he tried to get out and tried to hold on the wall, the balcony. And even as the rescuers, the fire rescuers, were trying to get equipment in place to get up there and save him, get their ladder in position to help him, he couldn't hold on and he eventually fell down. That's the life that we have lost. Time and again, in the city of Mumbai, we have raised the issue of fire safety and how it's one of the things that are repeatedly ignored by our authorities. Incident after incident, from residential to commercial to a hospital to a mall, wherever, incident after incident, destruction of property, loss of lives, promises made about accountability, promises made about audits, promises made about fixing this issue, but nothing actually happens. Is it because our laws are so complicated, or our departments are understaffed, or we just don't care? We don't care. The onus is on the people to watch out for themselves. Whether you go in a restaurant and eat, the onus is on you. Whether you live in a building, the onus is on you. Whether you're in a hospital, the onus is on you, because nobody else is actually going to do anything to ensure fire safety. 99% of the housing societies in Maharashtra are yet to complete fire audit. Their own study actually showed this, that housing societies taking safety requirements very lightly. Fire audit of most of the housing societies was pending as of 2019. Repeatedly, what happens when such reports come out? Another audit is done, another check is done, notices are issued, and things are forgotten. And while we talk about this apathy of our system, we have then netas who make insensitive comments. They blame people, in this case as well. People have been blamed for the fire mishap. Builder has been blamed for not doing the work. Security has been blamed for not being skilled enough to know how to deal with it. Everybody else has been blamed, but the authorities themselves. Mumbai mayor says that it was the builder who was responsible and that the security was unskilled. Listen in.
Joining me now is Kishori Pednekar, Mayor of Mumbai City. मैम, फिर से एक बार ये हादसा हुआ है. हर बार इस तरह के हादसे सामने आते हैं. क्या इस बार आपके कॉर्पोरेशन का डिफेंस है ये जो हादसा हुआ है आज बने विघ्न बिल्डिंग?
कॉर्पोरेशन का डिफेंस मैं नहीं बोल सकते.
हाँ.
क्योंकि इधर घर का काम चालू था. घर का काम चालू था.
घर का काम चालू था.
फ्लैट का, ब्यूटिफिकेशन का, अंदर का.
अंदर कौन से माले पे?
19 माले पे.
अच्छा.
उधर स्पार्क हुआ होगा और उससे आग लगी. 4 लेबर काम कर रहे थे. घर का ओनर भी नहीं था अंदर. वही लोग काम कर रहे थे. तो मुझे लगता है इसमें बीएमसी, अभी मैं मेरे घर में काम करती है तो मेरी जिम्मेदारी है ना. तो अभी हमारी जिम्मेदारी 10 मिनट में हमारी फायर पहुंच गई और लटक रहा था. हमने देखा, सीढ़ी लगा ही रहे थे, तब तक उसका हाथ छूट के वो गिर गया. और उसके बाद तो मुझे लगता है जो इधर की मेंटेनेंस या सिक्योरिटी वो अनस्किल्ड है। हम देख रहे हैं लटक रहे तो चादर लेके आओ,
नेट लगाओ,
नेट लगाओ या उसको गद्दा डालो,
समझ गया।
लेकिन वो कुछ नहीं।
ताई एक मेरा एक सवाल है, मेरी ना अजय जी से बात हुई जो यहाँ के लोकल एमएलए, उन्होंने बोला 2 साल से इस इमारत में जो फायर इक्विपमेंट्स थे वो काम नहीं कर रहे थे। ये लैप्स है या नहीं है?
नहीं है ना।
हाँ।
इसीलिए जिसने सोसाइटी को हैंडओवर नहीं किया,
हाँ।
खुद मेंटेन कर रहा था, उसको जिम्मेदार रखना
तो
चाहिए।
बिल्डर है वो?
हाँ होने दो ना, क्या है जो गलत है वो गलत है,
बिल्डर जिम्मेदार है।
जिम्मेदार वही होगा।
अच्छा ताई एक और बात, अगर वन एविग्ना जैसी पॉश सोसाइटी की बॉम्बे में ये हालत है तो आम सोसाइटीज की क्या हालत होगी? इसको लेके कॉर्पोरेशन सरकार क्या कदम उठाएगी?
मुझे लगता है आम सोसाइटी में बहुत ही अच्छी तरह काम होता है।
अच्छा।
ये हाई फाई में ही कम होता है।
हाँ।
क्योंकि किसी को आना जाना बंदी रहते हैं।
यहाँ तो लोग पैसे भी ज्यादा देते रहने।
हमारे बीएमसी को भी अंदर आने को अटकाव करते, तो हाई सोसाइटी में ही हाथ से ज्यादा गिरते।
तो क्या जो फ्लैट के ओनर हैं उनके ऊपर भी एक्शन होगा?
नहीं मुझे पता नहीं है, लेकिन जो हुई है उसके ऊपर।
On one side, you have this poor man who's actually the hero here, saving lives. The security guard who rushed to help. On the other side, you have politicians who blame everybody else. You can blame the high society people, you can blame the security department, you can blame the builder, you can blame everybody else, but not acknowledge that there is a real problem. Even if we are to say that the people are complicit because they don't bother to find out what the safety regulations are and whether in their building where they live it's being followed or not. Where is the accountability of the civic body? Where is the accountability of the fire department whose job it is to ensure that audits are done, checks are maintained and updated permissions are given? Are we so overwhelmed in cities like Mumbai that nobody is now even checking and disasters after disasters are just taking place? Asif Bamla of the Maharashtra BJP joins me this evening, Ketan Vaidya, political analyst, Dr. Anjali Quatra, author for Safety and Disaster Management, MV Deshmukh, President for the National Association of Fire Officer, with me as well. Mr. Deshmukh, I want to start off with you. It's not an easy task in a city like Mumbai with lakhs of buildings maybe to keep a check. But what is the system to ensure that residential buildings to begin with follow fire safety norms? Mr. Deshmukh, I think you're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
At the outset, let me clear out some of the misconceptions or myths about the fire audit. Fire audit has no statutory standing. The Maharashtra Fire Prevention Act, it is basically drafted by me along with my team, and the legal drafting of it got done from the expert Mr. Chaudhary, and it was placed before the legislature and the act was promulgated in the state of Maharashtra. This is an act with the 50 sections, and if you just even search through the PDF, you will not find the word fire audit. So even it is an utter surprise for me when I listen through the media and some of the people representatives, that they talk about the fire audit. In 2014, when we realized that there is a dire need to have the fire audit, and National Building Code, it has prescribed what the audit is and how the audit to be conducted. So I had moved the amendment to the same act, same legislation, but it is pending for more than 6 to 7 years. That is another, tragedy I can see. Now the second thing, when the buildings are constructed, Mumbai, as you said, the Mumbai is a challenge. Okay, let us consider the Mumbai as a challenge. Mumbai is the only city where the high-rise building definition is conveniently changed, and that is not either as per the National Building Code, it is neither as per the Urban Development Department, central government's guidelines, it is not as per the international building codes. The Indian code says the building above 15 meters is a high-rise building. The international code says that a building about 75 feet, say about 23, 24 meters, is supposed to be the high-rise building. Mumbai has conveniently defined the buildings above 32 meters are the high-rise building. Second thing, buildings up to 70 meters were permitted in the earlier development control rules to have the single staircase, and debates is to occur before the government, and they used to say that if you insist for the two staircases to the building, the development of the city will not happen. That was the kind of argument. So the rules are made conveniently for the benefit of whom the media knows the best and everyone knows the best.
So you're saying, Mr. Deshmukh, that the rules itself, as far as what should be the design, what should be the fire safety to be followed, there itself there is a problem.
Rules are deficient, number one. Number two reason is the regulator is very weak. Regulator has to work under a lot of pressure of the different pressure groups, and regulator is by itself is weak.
When you say regulator, who is the regulator here for who's supposed to ensure?
The regulator here is the BMC and its departments for the moment. Say, for example, the fire department, which gives the fire prevention approval and the fire prevention NOCs.
Right.
At the time of plan approval and at the time of the completion or the occupation certificate. The occupation certificate is issued by the building proposal department of the BMC. So that is the regulator. And now the regulator is weak for the reasons as I told you. The regulator has a limited manpower, number one. Number two, they are over-occupied in processing the proposals. Number three, their training and education in the fire prevention has a limitation. And there is a conflict of interest. The conflict of interest is, I said previously on the media that, say, the best fire department in the world, which I always talk about, the FDNY, the Fire Department of New York. The Fire Department of New York has an independent fire prevention bureau with 250 people. And the people those are supposed to inspect the buildings are different than the operational people. Here, the same job is being done by there's a dual responsibility with the operational people to, they look after the fire prevention, which is the conflict of interest, I would say. So with these all terms, if you see, the regulator itself has a lot of limitations and the regulator is weak.
Okay.
Now the second part of the Tanvi, there is a Maharashtra Fire Prevention Act.
Yes, Mr. Deshmukh, if you will, I'll come back to you for sure. Let me just bring in other panelists and then I will come back to you.
Please.
Mr. Asif Bamla, it actually comes down to authorities, government, civic body who design the rules and who are also responsible for ensuring that the rules followed. Unfortunately, when a tragedy occurs, everybody else gets blamed except these two.
Does the Mumbai Fire Department, Fire Brigade Department, have the infrastructure to reach the 20th floor in a eventuality like this is a very big question mark. Now, the Mahanagar Palika has the largest budget of a 30,000 crore. Are they allocating sufficient budgets to the fire brigade authorities? That's another big question. Now, like Mr. Deshmukh was, while he was speaking, I was trying to understand that the New York has got the best firefighting arrangements. So let me also submit that Mumbai is an island city which has got the largest high-rises in the suburbs as well as in the cities. In places like New York and abroad, you have robots, you have drones, you have expert operators to handle or address this challenge. Is Mumbai, which is supposed to be the commercial capital of the country, well equipped? You know, if you see the administration should be conducting the surprise audits. Are we actually doing these surprise fire audits or no? That's another big question. And housing societies should adhere to the mandatory fire fighting regulations. You see, there are societies which are 20 years old, but they don't have, and there are places where there are, if you see in societies, when you go, they have a simple, a spray kind of a thing, which maybe barely is not even working. So this is a very serious problem, and whenever there is a situation like this, we discuss about it,
yes.
And after that, even the Mahanagar Palika forgets it, and and this is entirely ignored. So I am asking you, who does this accountability go to?
So allow me to answer some part of it.
Every time do we have to wait for a man's life to be to die, and for us to push on the buck to somebody? It's right from the builder to the people who are doing the interior decoration work or whatever. I am asking, we have a robust Mahanagar Palika of the city.
Right.
We should have these plans, and we should have the firefighting brigade system well equipped with drones, with all these affluent and efficient arrangements to
Yes,
fight
no, so
such challenges. And I
we
think
all know what we should have, Mr. Bamla.
this is a very serious issue.
But we're not able to play this catch-up game. We all know that as we build more and more high-rises, the fire department needs to be backed up with that kind of equipment. We are way behind the curve on bringing that equipment. To the questions that you asked, has there been a fire audit? There have been multiple fire audits, at least in the city of Mumbai. And all these fire audits have thrown up shocking data. The 2016 fire audit also told us how 78% of the amount reserved for upgrading firefighting systems was not spent. This was a CAG report that said so. And that fire safety norms were ignored in 8 of the cities in Maharashtra. In 2019, another report came out that said fire audit ignored by 99% of the housing societies in Maharashtra. The question is, Ketan Vaidya, every time we find this information. No, actually, these are just statistics. The question is this, and this is to Ketan Vaidya.
I have a solution to this, which I can briefly say.
1 minute, Mr. Bamla, I'll come back to you. I want to first hear from Ketan Vaidya. The solution is simple. We have to check, follow up, and fix. We only check, and we never follow up and fix it. Why is that?
Well, more than fixing responsibility, this problem, I think, should be seen beyond the cobweb of permissions, responsibilities, and budgets, because every time a fire happens, we keep on discussing the same old stuff again and again. I feel that there are 2 contours to this problem from the face of what I've heard about this fire. One is the building's internal capabilities of fighting this fire, and second is the Mumbai Fire Brigade preparedness. We have one of the most advanced firefighting units, that is the Mumbai Fire Brigade. Then what happened to the building's internal preparedness? Because a building that is such a high rise cannot just function without requisite permission. I'm sure there were fire hoses in place, there was firefighting internal equipment. Then why did it malfunction? Because clearly it has malfunctioned. Had it not malfunctioned, then a fire caused due to some internal work happening in one of the flats spread, and it became a number 4 fire, which meant that either the equipment was not functional or people didn't have any training about how to operate that equipment. Which brings us to the bigger question. While we are throwing figures at each other, 30,000 crore and fire budget and blah and blue, we need to pinpoint at one core question. How much has the fire department spent on awareness? How much has the fire department spent on training the societies? Is there a public-private partnership that can be worked out in the case of all the high-rises? Because we are going to have more such incidents. The fire brigade will reach on time. However, the fire will escalate because of lack of knowledge, lack of training, and failure of internal firefighting equipment. So I think fire awareness program is one. Teaching people how to use this equipment is another, and I think the whole problem should be seen through these 2 lenses.
Okay, while you say, and definitely there needs to be more awareness amongst people, there needs to be training, every society is supposed to carry out on its own set of drills. But if there are basic rules and regulations of where your exits are those exits operational? Is the fire safety equipment operational? If all of those things are not looked into, then Dr. Quatra, who do we hold accountable, and how do we fix this? I will agree with the viewpoint that it just can't be it can't just be one department, and perhaps people need to come on board for this as well. But the accountability and the movement has to start from somewhere, Dr. Quatra.
That's true. Every year, there have been so many fire accidents and so many lives being lost. In fact, if you see the National Crime Records Bureau's records about deaths, it's only next to road traffic accidents that people are dying in fire accidents. And I think the last 2-3 years I have shown very, very disastrous scenes. See, fire as a man-made disaster is included under the Disaster Management Act, and therefore it is governed by the Ministry of Home Affairs, by the Government of India. And in 2016, the national building codes have been revised and they have been made very strict, and they include within the building construction practices, the most important is the fire safety norms. And its implementation, it has to be done by the state governments, because the constitution says disasters, especially fires, and its safety and prevention, all these services have to be provided by the state governments, and certain cities have the municipal corporations doing it. And obviously here we can see BMC has not done its job well enough, despite the last few fires which were wake up calls. So first thing, it's most important that not only the guidelines should be followed, it is also, the guidelines have very specific measures which include the most important lacuna, and that is the awareness among the citizens. Those, and there's so many categories. There are about 9 kinds of buildings categorized there, and the top one is the residential buildings. And in that, it is important that each and every resident should be aware of how to protect oneself in case of a fire, how to, how many fire extinguishers should be there in each floor, at what distance they should be placed. And especially if a building, each plate is above 200 square meters, there are specific norms that there should be even automatic sprinklers in the building, in each flat. And especially if there are places like a car parking under it, the basement and all these things are there to be followed. But most important, the lacuna, the gap that has to be filled is the awareness of these residents. And for that, also the building code itself is providing under the fire safety norms that the authority, the agency which is executing the fire prevention norms, must involve them in their own safety. They have to be trained, they have to be made aware of the risks, and how to even understand the risk within their building. They should be aware, and they have to follow the practices. And if there is no training, and there is no, there has been cost cutting, or there has been careless behavior on part of the residents or the builders, the corporations who are governing these residential buildings, they must take onus on how to because after the fire, even the fire safety precaution, these brigades and all are there.
Yes.
But then the lives would be lost even before. So there should be inbuilt system within the building how to handle a fire, and especially, as I said, fire extinguishers, their operations, its maintenance, very important, because most of the equipments lying also are dysfunctional.
Okay,
They have not been even checked.
Right, maintenance of the equipment, where the onus also comes on the people who are responsible for that. But when they don't do their job, then who holds them accountable? Mr. Asif Amla wanted to come in. Go ahead, please.
You see, as we rightly mentioned, now this discussion will happen. And I hope that there is no other eventuality, so that we don't have to sit for a debate like this. But the seriousness, the focus, happens only when there's an eventuality like this, and then we are busy. I mean, if you see also today, I'm very surprised to see the politicians pushing the buck and blaming X, Y, Z. Why aren't we as one of the renowned cities of the world? We are having the best high rises. We are happy about it, and it's an island city. But what I'm saying is, why don't we propose that the state government issue a notification wherein all the housing societies are asked to conduct mock for fire escapes? It's possible. I mean, if you see abroad, you create a mock fire escape drill. You plan that while the inception of the building and before the OC is granted to the concerned builder. They can always have these mock trial, these drills wherein you have the local, the fire brigade officers of the concerned ward. Like I live in a place like Bandra, where we have H West ward. So we can have an officer deputed who would do these mock drills to prepare, set up an infrastructure where if an eventuality like this appears, we don't have to push the blames on anybody. And unfortunately, like today, we are seeing this poor, I believe he was a security man who lost his life. And for whom? For whose negligence, I'm asking?
Yes.
Until when is this going to go on? So before we issue the OCs, I mean, the occupation certificate should not be issued till all the compliances of the fire brigade are done. And you see, these large societies, there is no, if you see, even their evacuation areas are undertaken by the developers. They have even used that and made them as individual flats and even sold them. If you see,
Who is responsible for the life that we lost today? A poor man's life lost.
Do I push the buck to the BMC? Do I push the buck to the developer? Is something which I am asking myself, because I know that in the city like Mumbai, you will have no solutions. You will only have problems like this, and until we will keep losing, people, poor people whose life we don't value at all.
Yes. Okay. So let's approach it from another way. And what our other experts have also said, you also indicated, and I'm going to take that point back to Mr. Deshmukh. Mr. Deshmukh, if it is about people taking the lead and taking the onus and the responsibility and working along with the fire department to build awareness, to carry out the drills, and then ensuring that systems are functional and followed where they live. Can that be done? And to what extent are the fire departments empowered or staffed enough to carry out such campaigns?
See, as I said about the few things about the New York Fire Department, I did not mean that they have the robots and they have the some kind of equipment. Actually, the inbuilt fire safety of the building, what Ms. Anjali was trying to highlight, that is the key for the safe living, safe building envelopes. So, for example, as I told you, there are many tall buildings in the city where they are surviving with a single staircase. So, evacuation is a problem. Even if you conduct a drill, maybe people may die due to the stampede. That is my fear. Second thing, there are fire lifts required. Now, Mumbai is the only city where they have changed the high-rise building definition. They have allowed the fire chutes for the escape, which is an impractical solution. They have got into the rules. So you have to have how people of the age of, say, senior citizens, physically infirm persons, how they are going to come through the staircases for 60-storied and 40-storied buildings. So you have to have a separate lift. The National Building Code we see mentioned about, I have proud privilege to tell you all that I am the part of the core committee of the part 4 of the National Building Code, and that is the way code has been designed. Maybe there could be deficiencies, there is a scope for improvement, but that code, even if it is followed to the extent
why should there be a deficiency? Don't issue an occupation certificate, Mr. Deshmukh.
Please allow me to speak, Mr. Bhamla. So if it is implemented to the extent of 90%, I can tell you the building will be very, very safe. But that is not being followed. Third thing, the tactical firefighting part is concerned. I would say the Indian firefighters, not only Mumbai, but amongst the India, again, Mumbai, Delhi, all these metros, these firefighters are the best. Equipment may be poor or little deficiency. Now, always there is a debate. Media calls me and asks me, we have a ladder of the 90-meter tall and that can access to a certain height, and we are going taller. Even in New York, ladders above 45 meters are not allowed. They are not allowed because that itself is a death trap. These ladders cannot move on your podiums and all that. And ladder is just a little aid or support. Ladder cannot be the means for the rescue for the entire occupants, and therefore there has to be an inbuilt arrangement. Now coming to the drill, the very valid point that raised by Mr. Bhamla, that we as a Fire Safe India Foundation and the fire departments of the different cities, including Mumbai, they are putting a lot of effort. See, let us see, good is good and the bad is bad. Once I know that this is bad, there's a scope for improvement. They are putting a lot of efforts for the public awareness. They're going to schools, they're going to colleges, they're going to societies, but again, there's a limitation. When we approach to them, many times there is a very lukewarm or no response from the society members. They look at us as the clowns, which is very bad. So people, if we go by invitation, then we find an interest in the people, such societies. And we also get encouragement, yes, we must go and do something. So it is a two-way public-private partnership word which you use. Yes, that is the way only we can focus on the prevention.
Okay.
Now I will just go give an anecdote that, see, it is the importance of the road. Our road should be as safe as possible to minimize the accidents. But the way you drive, whether you drink and drive, you carelessly drive, you don't put a safety belt, you don't put a helmet, is that always the government's responsibility? So it has to be a confluence of both. The public participation, people's interest, people's empowerment, and at the same time regulator. But as I very boldly said that, yes, there is a deficiency on the part of regulator, we must improve upon.
Right.
There are people and they can do it. When Mr. Siddharam Kunte, who was the Chief Secretary of Maharashtra today, when he was the Municipal Commissioner of Bombay, we had given him a proposal that you should have an independent fire prevention wing. He created certain positions, but I don't know then what happened. So this is the way, there are people. Mumbai has been fortunately being always ruled by the very reasonably good bureaucrats. There is a good leadership, but unfortunately, why we blame each other?
Nobody refutes
the
the
job
hierarchy
together.
and the bureaucrats.
There are do's and don'ts. I'll tell you the last thing that last month only we conducted the program in light of the Bangalore tragedy where 2 females died in the balcony. It was not even a high-rise building.
Yes.
We conducted the program for all housing societies in Mumbai and Maharashtra and Pan India also. It was a webinar earlier. There was a fire safety webinar on the hospital. We had 1,300 plus registrations. Society, we had 400 registrations and only 250 people participated. And at the end of the program, there could be very few people, those were interested.
But if I can just come in here, Mr. Deshmukh, and say that I don't think webinars on fire safety are absolutely going to get you any traction. I'm sorry to say this, it also comes from the point of view of people don't take it seriously. It's a reality that we don't take our own fire safety. I know, I understand. Yes, which is why I am saying don't feel disheartened by those numbers, because one, nobody wants to attend webinars today anymore. We are so fed up of webinars. Secondly, people need to take fire safety a lot more seriously as well.
Webinars are not going to relieve the lives of the people.
Program,
Okay?
they may take interest in future. That is my purpose.
Yeah. But I am saying this, and here is my point to Ketan Vaidya. Until there is fear of punishment and accountability, right from the fire department to the civic body and other officials who are in charge of looking at this, ensuring it, to the builder, to the society, Ketan Vaidya, this will not change. Give me, in how many of those instances that we've seen, has there been that kind of accountability, except in a couple of cases where the builder was put behind bars?
Well, it's just a passing of buck. If you want to fix the responsibility, then I'll make 3 pointed suggestions or recommendations. One is, as my worthy friend Bhamla said, that mock drills should be compulsory before OC. I think mock drills should be something, it should be a yearly affair, and the license or the OC should be renewed every year. And for that, the fire department with 2,000, 3,000 employees is already overworked and underpaid. So there should be a different department within the fire department, which should be called the training and awareness department, and there should be a big fat budget for it. And the responsibility of this department should be to conduct fire drills and ensure that the people are trained. People are trained to how to use those fancy equipment for which the society charge and maintain. So that is one thing. Second is the refuge floor. There should be an independent audit of how many builders have sold a refuge floor. Because I have worked in an American organization and American government in the past, and I know that the refuge floor and a steel ladder, a different the escape route. This is a must for any American building. Why can't we emulate something to that effect here? So that is my second suggestion. And third is, of course, the escape route.
I'll tell you why, Mr. Ketan Vaidya. Because when laws are made from the interest of the builder and not the people who are going to buy those homes and live in those homes. And that's where it comes down to. My apologies, but I'm completely out of time.
5 seconds. The buildings where people are staying, where there are no OCs, but they are staying on high-rises building. So forget getting the OC. Before the OC, only people have come to stay there, and about as far as your the stores, the floors in between, which is the refugee floor, that is itself also sold by the developers. It's a very unfortunate thing.
Yes. Maybe making people more aware and instilling some amount of fear is the only way to go forward. But one thing is very clear, as I thank my panelists, you can't put the complete onus on the authorities because you're on your own. And every time such an instance happens, you actually hear that commentary coming in from the authorities as well. Blame the people, blame the owner, blame those who are inside, blame the security, blame the society, blame the builder. Everybody else except the authorities whose job is to ensure rules are followed, safety is maintained, fire safety is extremely important. We just don't think about it at all. How many times do you think about it when you move into a new building and into a new home? How many times do you think about it when you go inside a movie theater or in a restaurant as to whether they have whether they are fire compliant or not, whether their fire exits are in place or not and not blocked by anything? How many times have you thought about whether the fire extinguishing equipment in your society, in your school, hospital, mall, hotel, restaurant, whether it's functional or not? Maybe if we start asking those questions, maybe if we start finding out and insisting on answers, on action, then some change will begin. Think about it. Thank you for joining us.